Hello everyone, hope that you're all doing well. So today we're going to be talking about all things sugar. So we'll be addressing questions around how much sugar we should be consuming in a day. We'll also be learning about how to read nutritional labels so that we can find out and determine exactly how much sugar is in the food items or drinks that we consume. And then we'll be putting an end to the debate about brown sugar versus white sugar, as well as with regards to honey. And then finally, we'll also be talking about fruit juices. Are they indeed actually healthy? So these are just some of the things that we'll be covering in today's video. So please stay tuned and do not go anywhere. Just as a disclaimer, I think it's really important for me to put this out there that this video is in no way intended to demonize sugar. As with anything in life, too much of anything is better for us, but as long as we moderate it, it can actually play a healthy role in our diet. So with that being said, it's equally important for us to know some of the negative aspects attributed to sugar. So firstly, having too much added sugar in our diet is associated with an increased risk of obesity as well as heart disease. Then it's also important for us to understand the function of liver in relation to sugar. So what the liver does is that it tends to filter out any excess waste that we have in our body. However, when we consume too much sugar, our liver tends to convert that excess sugar into fat. Now, having too much of that fat is one of the reasons that can lead to type 2 diabetes. Now, I am sure that you'll all agree with me that one of the issues associated with sugar is that it can be extremely addictive. So when we consume sugar, one of the hormones that our body releases is a hormone called dopamine. Now, dopamine is usually associated with a feeling of pleasure, similar to the type of pleasure that one would experience when one consumes stimulants such as alcohol or even drugs. Another hormone to bear in mind when it comes to sugar is called leptin. So what leptin does is that it's usually released by our fat cells to send a signal to our brain that we are full so that we know to stop eating. However, when we consume too much sugar, leptin is actually not able to send the signal to our brain. Therefore, we are under the impression that we're not full and we tend to overeat than we should, which then leads to obesity. And of course, obesity is linked to chronic diseases of the lifestyle such as type 2 diabetes as well as heart disease. Let's now talk about how much sugar we need to take in on a daily basis. So the World Health Organization recommends that for adult men, they should not consume more than just 9 teaspoons of sugar in a day, whereas for adult female, they're recommended not to exceed 6 teaspoons of sugar in a day. We are now going to learn about how to read nutritional labels, and in so doing, we'll also be able to determine exactly how much sugar is in what we eat as well as what we drink. So usually at the back of food items or drink items, there should be a nutritional label, and along with the nutritional label, there should be an ingredient list. What is important for you to remember regarding the ingredient list is that it's usually placed in the order of highest to lowest. So as a rule of thumb, just look at the first 3 ingredients and that should tell you what that drink or food contains the most of. If we look at the table usually gives us the energy, its energy content, its protein content, as well as its carbohydrate content. And then underneath the carbohydrate content, it usually tells us of which total sugar, and that is what we're concerned about for the purpose of this video. So you'll see that it gives all these macronutrients to us in 100 mils as well as per 250 mils. So I'm more concerned about the 250 mils because that's a cup serving, and for most of us we usually drink juice or take 1 cup of juice or maybe even more. Just as a side note, because we're in South Africa, we make use of the metric system. So for the metric system, we use things like mils and grams, whereas in America, for instance, they make use of the imperial system where they use things like pounds and ounces. So you'll see where it says of which total sugar in grams, and I'm more concerned about where it says 250 mils because 250 mils equals 1 cup, and it says over here that it contains 31 grams of sugar. So what does 31 grams of sugar means to us? I then want to understand it in terms of teaspoons. 1 teaspoon contains 4 grams of sugar. So I'm then going to take that 31 and divide it by 4, and that is going to give me roughly 7.5 teaspoons. So that tells me that if I drink 1 cup of this juice, I am going to get 7.5 teaspoons of sugar out of that 1 cup. Most of us, we don't just stick to 1 cup. We tend to drink 2 or maybe 3. So if you have 2 cups, it's going to be 7.5 times by 2, which then means that you are taking in 15 teaspoons of sugar. Remember that we said that the recommended daily recommendations for males is 9 teaspoons, and then for women it is 6 teaspoons. So if you're a female and you drink 1 cup of this juice, you've already exceeded that recommendation. Okay, so remember that we said that men should not exceed 9 teaspoons of sugar in a day, whereas for women, we should not exceed 6 teaspoons of sugar in a day. So let's see how easy it is to exceed these recommendations. So let's say for breakfast, you have porridge or cereal, and in that porridge, you add 2 teaspoons of sugar. Then for your breakfast, you also have a glass of grape juice. So grape juice has about 7.5 teaspoons of sugar in it. Then around tea time, you decide to have some tea, and inside your tea, you put 2 teaspoons of sugar. For lunch, with your lunch, you decide to have 1 glass of fizzy cool drink. So let's say that has about 3 to 4 teaspoons of sugar. And then again for supper, with your supper, you decide to have another glass of fizzy cool drink. So let's add another 3. And there we have it, 17.5 teaspoons of sugar. Isn't this yummy? Now we're going to talk about fruit juices versus actual fruits. Are fruit juices actually healthy, or are they not so healthy? So one thing that we need to factor in mind when it comes to fruit juices is that they actually contain a lot of calories. It takes between 2 to 4 medium oranges just to make 1 cup of orange juice. Now that is a lot of fruits just to get to 1 cup. The other thing that we also need to factor in mind is that these fruit juices do not have the fiber in it. So if you were to eat this whole orange by itself and not just extract the juice that is found, you'd be benefiting from getting not only the juice but also the fiber. Fiber is very important for our gut. It helps us to keep fuller for longer, and it helps us to manage some of our chronic diseases such as diabetes and high blood pressure. So instead of going for fruit juices, rather go for fruits as a whole so that you'll not just get the fruits, but you'll also get the fiber. However, if you do want to drink fruit juices, instead of going for a glass or 2, rather just go for half a cup and then you can in turn dilute it with some water to get it to a full cup. So we're now going to address the question of whether brown sugar or honey is a healthy alternative to white sugar. So contrary to popular belief, brown sugar and white sugar are actually quite similar. The only difference is that brown sugar gets its color from what we call molasses, and it also contains slightly more minerals than white sugar. They both contain the same amount of kilojoules. So basically what I'm trying to say to you is that they're actually the same. Brown sugar is not better, nor is it healthier than white sugar. Moving along to honey. Honey has been known to have a lower glycemic index value than sugar, meaning that it does not raise one's blood sugar levels as quickly. Honey is also much more sweeter than sugar, so you may need less of it, but it also does have slightly more calories per teaspoon as compared to sugar. So it would be wise to keep a close eye on how much of it that you consume. So for diabetics and those who are trying to manage their blood sugar levels, there is no real advantage to substituting sugar for honey, as both will ultimately affect one's blood sugar levels.